Hi, this is Becky. Welcome back to my classroom. You may notice that the picture that you're looking at is totally different than the subject which I'm currently painting. The reason being that in the week since I taped my painting the hair texture on the mama's hair, I realized that even though these video clips are just a short lesson, they're not meant to take the place of a longer DVD, which is more extensive, and which I actually am planning on making and having available. Nevertheless, it would help you all a lot if you understood a little bit about some of the principles why I'm doing hair texture the way I'm doing it. And so one of the best examples that I have is a portrait I painted of my daughter Becky Laura, same daughter, when she was a little girl sitting on the beach. And if you have bought anything from my website, you probably have a copy of the printed study that I have on this lesson. The reason I'm using this particular lesson is because I want to, one of the principles that you have to keep in mind when you're texturing hair is that the head is like a ball, right? The hair may be off of the head so that everything's not in a ball shape, but regardless, when you texture and when you put highlights on the head, it needs to look like it's a contour, a ball. Not only a contour in this direction, but also in this direction. So when you watched me paint highlights into the hair on my portrait, I wasn't simply wiping out strands of hair for the effect of texturing. I was also wiping out, it wasn't a random choice of where I was laying my brush down. It actually had a purpose to it. Depending upon your individual study and where the light is how you're going to handle wiping out those all-important highlights. In this particular instance, the light is coming straight from up above, shining here. So it was very important to clear out a bright highlight here on her head. Do you see how the highlight and the shape of it gives the impression that her head is a ball coming towards you? It doesn't look flat, does it? And that's one of the most important things when you're painting your hair and choosing your highlights, is to get the proper contour so that use the highlights in the way that will make it look like a ball. The second thing you saw me do previously was wipe out bright strands. Now notice here, see the bright strand there? Down here. These bright strands help to shape the hair. And especially later on in the portrait, you'll see me later on, wherever you have the light, it's more intense if you add a little bit of dark in there. So you can see how it goes from bright progressively down to darker, and as light comes out of the sunlight into darker. Highlights are also used, for instance, right here to show the texture of the braid. The braid is mostly in shadow, yet the little highlights there, even though it goes into darker value, allows you to understand that there is texture and there's a braid there. Let's take a close look now at the photograph that I'm using and see how we can apply those principles. Now, admittedly, this particular pose is a challenge in making the head look round. Because so much the light is very, very different in this photograph. You have the very bright light, which pretty much washes out all the color on this hair here. And then you have the light which is emanating from the photograph, that reflected light. But if you look carefully at the photograph, you can see that there is the highlight there, which is coming from this direction. It's hitting a highlight there. And then, of course, the highlight from here is not just straight down, but it rather extends out, fades out a little bit in here. Notice also that there are certain sections of hair. There's this section of hair, there is this section of hair, and there's this section of hair. And then you have this section of hair which is completely in darkness. So let's examine what I did, I should say, last week. I wiped out, let me back this up just a smidgen. Alright. I painted in the dark color. Then I was careful to wipe out, and in fact, after I got off of the video, I wiped a little more. I blended it out a little bit here. Then I wiped out a considerable highlight here. Now this may be filled in a little bit when I get done, because all of this is going to go quite a bit darker. But for now, I'm leaving that there because I want to have that as the reflected light from this direction. Straight light from this way, reflected light from up here. Now, the highlights that I laid in were primarily to section off the hair. I have this section here, and you see how I'm going to have dark against the light? That will make it accentuate that as being a block of hair. This here, I have another highlight. She has her hair pulled behind her ears. Then she has this hair streaming back over her shoulder. Now you may have noticed that I really didn't do much at all in this area here. And I'm not going to do much at all. I have used my hair texture brush and I've done a light texture through there. But I don't want to draw attention to that area. It's in shadow. It's like when you're painting a landscape, certain areas are going to be in close focus and other areas are going to be blurred out. Similar if you're painting a floral. You don't want all of your leaves, for instance, to have the same degree of clarity. You want soft edges and hard edges. And that's the thing to keep in mind with the hair too. You don't want to overdo the texture in the entire head. You want the texture to be apparent where it's going to be most effective, and in this case it is where the direct light is hitting it.